Trial resumes today for Fabrice Tour. He's also known as Fabulous Fab, a former Goldman Sachs executive. Prosecutors say he epitomized Wall Street greed. He's accused of selling $1 billion in toxic mortgage investments. They were designed to fail. The case is one of a handful brought against Wall Street bankers for their role in the financial meltdown. Bethany McLean is a contributing editor at Vanity Fair. She has covered the financial crisis extensively. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So why him, and why this case, and the significance of what might happen?
Well, him, because he's the one who was unfortunate enough to send emails. He's a pretty junior guy at Goldman Sachs, and his defense is that lots of other people knew about this. 6 other people in the mortgage department, 19 other people at Goldman saw these documents, and he's being scapegoated because he made the mistake of sending emails.
Why is the SEC going after him and not Goldman Sachs?
Well, they did, and Goldman Sachs actually paid $550 million to settle the charges against the firm without admitting or denying guilt. Although Goldman did have to admit that its marketing materials were incomplete.
So let's just back up and explain what this is. What was he charged with creating? Something called abacus, right?
So really a monstrosity, as he called it. A transaction that allowed one person, one side, to bet that home prices were going to go up and everything was going to be fine, and one side to bet that it was all going to fall apart, the hedge fund. Basically a transaction that has nothing to do with the real economy. I agree. I think it was a monstrosity. And the idea is that he was responsible for lying to the people who invested by not telling them that this hedge fund was helping to design this transaction that was going to fail.
And their argument has always been that somehow they was going to be sold to Europeans and they knew all the information they needed to know.
That these were sophisticated investors who understood exactly how the game worked, and that Goldman had no responsibility to disclose anything more than it did.
But as you point out,
this issue, has anybody gone to trial and been convicted?
You know, the SEC brought a very similar case against a junior Citigroup employee last summer and lost. Right about this time, the jury found him not guilty. And really, almost nobody has been charged in the wake of the financial crisis, no senior executives. So to me, hanging all the sins of the financial crisis on the back of this relatively junior guy at Goldman Sachs just feels unfair.
So why is he vulnerable?
He's vulnerable because he sent emails. He was the person at Goldman who was responsible for structuring the transaction, even though he argues lots of other people had their eyes on it. And he sent these very colorful emails that helped the SEC.
Calling himself the Fabulous Fab.
Yeah.
And also, didn't he say somehow that he didn't understand it all himself?
Yes, he did. To me, that makes him sort of somewhat sympathetic. But as the lawyer said to me, look, you've got emails showing him with his hand in the cookie jar. Other people who may have been involved in this transaction, their hand isn't in the cookie jar.
The interesting thing about all this is that many people in Wall Street didn't quite understand all this themselves, including executives.
Right.
Now you have a prosecutor who has to explain that to a juror. How difficult is that?
I think it's really difficult. And you just don't know how these things are going to play at trial because of the complexity of this. So much is going to be dependent on the legal skills at work in the courtroom, the legal and just the, frankly, English skills in the courtroom to explain this to jurors. So I think it'll be a fascinating trial. And the role of Goldman Sachs in this is bound not to be great for the firm, which had finally escaped public scrutiny. And now here they are again, everybody looking at them.
Bethany McLean, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.